Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of Stronghold SHX, the road to $3.33 with myself, CryptoBanker SHX. I hope you're well. It is August the 6th. It is a Wednesday. Before we dive into today's episode, just a prerequisite, an important one as always. I am not a financial advisor, and nothing I ever say or do should be taken as financial advice. Kicking off today's episode, we're looking at SHX on the daily as always, and it is still trading above that magical 2-cent number. We've seen a decrease in volume of around 39.92%, which means that it's just under $1 million being traded in SHX in the last 24 hours. Now, if we look at the wider market, we can see that obviously that's aligning, but hasn't affected SHX too much. Obviously, there is a lot of manipulation going on with the market makers currently, while they're still allowed to do that to the market. But if we're looking at the community and we're seeing what SHX is doing on chain, provided by Mind Crypto, please do give him a follow if you don't already on X. And the things that he's finding, like, wow. So, CoinSpot, there was a deposit of $74.49 thousand in Ether to CoinSpot. And this is Australia's largest crypto exchange. Now, I have said, and I said this yesterday in a reply to someone, that the US is the main market. But the thing about Stronghold is, and what most people miss, is that they're actually global. And they have done work in Europe. It has always been wrapped up in NDAs. They have done work outside the US, again, all wrapped up in NDAs. But the key thing here is governments. They work not with one government, but governments. And I think what we're going to see, especially with Australia and Canada, etc., is the partnerships or the relationships being disclosed at some point in the future, and you'll be able to see it for yourself, right? That when you're dealing with governments and banks, both central and private, the thing to remember is that they're the same thing in most countries. And when you have that situation, it means that if you are working with the governments of that country, then potentially you have favorable relationships with regulators and also the exchanges, right? So that's something just to bear in mind. I think that rightly so, the concentration is always on the US market, as that's the main player. But at the same time, Stronghold's global. They just haven't told you yet. Now, in regards to the other exchanges, we're now seeing $3.5 million worth of Ether again going to Gemini. So are we just going to see this continuation and these larger amounts leaving the Stronghold wallet and entering the major exchanges? Now, this is really interesting because I covered this, I think, last week, and I said the bullish thing about SHX and all the nonsense and manipulation that goes on by market makers actually using customer funds to manipulate the price to wipe out high leverage traders. Like, that will come to an end at some point. But what's really interesting is that they've never allowed futures on SHX apart from on MEXC. Now, when you go on MEXC, you'll realize that you can only place up to $1,800 in regards to a leverage bet, which, if you speak to people who do leverage bet, like, that's not a lot whatsoever to play with. It's almost like not worth doing, because if you think about it, like, if you had $50 at a 33x, then it's not a massive it's not really worth your time. And so what's happened is that it's going to be delisted from the futures, and it's going to be on the 14th of August. Now, it could just be a coincidence, but I don't really believe in those. And I think that what is happening, what's clearly happening on chain, why are they sending all these funds to the exchanges? Well, that's kind of a confirmation, isn't it? that we're about to see major listings for SHX across the board. Because why would you stop the futures? Why would you have it limited anyway to $1,800? You may as well not have it, right? But then to delist it, and to delist it days before the SALT conference. Which Strongholder sponsors that? And do you think that they might want to share what they've been doing? And do you think that at that point, given who is attending the SALT conference, because SALT is a global investment platform connecting institutional asset owners with asset managers and technology entrepreneurs. But do you know who's behind SALT? Kraken. So why would they be delisting the futures? I can tell you, because they know that SHX is going to aggressively appreciate in price. And if they allowed the normal volume and the normal leverage parameters, then they might put themselves in a little bit of danger in regards to risk. Now, exchanges, they're like banks. They're like any financial institution. They rig the game to win. And especially with leverage trading, it's like a casino. So they obviously manipulate the markets. So they always win. But the problem that they have is they can't manipulate the price of SHX, right? Because it's not on the futures, and these exchanges haven't even got hold of it yet. So they can't even use their holdings of SHX to try and manipulate the market to drop the price, to wipe out the leverage traders, because Bitcoin dominance will drop at some point. It already has, but it's going to free fall. When that happens, Bitcoin won't have the effect that it does currently on the market, but in particular SHX. So SHX has the platform, given that there's no futures, and MEXC are literally telling you they don't want to be involved in this, even with a minuscule $1,800 potentially available for people to long or short. Who's at the SALT conference? Who's speaking? Well, it's the elite of the US government regulatory, like the key players within regulation within the US. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, Stronghold maybe want to go there and say, look, we're on all of these exchanges? Why would they be sponsoring it? These people are institutional investors. They're not retail going to this. It's at the Four Seasons. These are all the major players within finance going, and all the major players within crypto are sponsoring it. The ones with regulatory clarity and passes. So, like I say, if you're looking for timelines, and people always ask me, well, what's going to happen? Well, look at this. Look what they're doing. If MEXC don't want any exposure to Stronghold futures after the 14th of August, and given that SALT is then a few days after that, it's incredibly bullish. Like, you don't get more bullish than this. These circumstances are ridiculous as well. Like, anyone in crypto, if you wrote down the ideal scenario for a project and the circumstances, they would be it for SHX. This is it. A glitch in the matrix, some might say. Here, John is stating that the next green candle is going to be insane. Well, I've been saying it, John, and I don't think you're wrong, John. John Frank, sorry. Double barrel name. But yeah, to be frank, John, I think you're right. Now, to end, if you are not already, please join the Stronghold X community. There are 2,800 of us, and we're just growing by the day. And it's really interesting because obviously I get to see where these people are coming from. And they are coming primarily from XRP and Quant in terms of background. So therefore, people from other projects who are potentially maxis in other projects as well are starting to come around. If you look at the comments in my videos, you see a lot of people saying, should I swap all my XRP for SHX? Not that I'm advising to do that. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing I ever say or do should be taken as financial advice. But you're asking me a question that I can't really answer, right? Only you can answer it. But what I will say is this: there's going to be two things that happen. The first is that potentially two things that are going to happen. The first is that people will sell. Of course, they'll take profits. But the fact is that I think what we're going to witness is people then FOMOing back in. That always happens. The second scenario is the people that don't act now will FOMO in even harder as it starts to rise. Now, that might or might not happen, but that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I'm seeing. And so, like I always say, we've got what? In 2 weeks' time, Stronghold will be sponsors at the SALT conference, alongside all the industry players, alongside all of the American elite when it comes to regulations and federal government. It'd be a little bit, I suppose, not the best image if they're like, hey, we're available on MEXC and BitTrue. If you're in America, then use a VPN and go on DEX. Go on Stellator. I don't think that's going to happen, considering that Kraken are behind this whole conference. Like, make up your own minds, but I would be very surprised if they don't enter that conference having a multitude of listings already have happened. That's it for episode 21. I hope you're well wherever you are in the world and wherever you're watching this. I hope you've had a fantastic day or about to. And I will see you tomorrow for episode 22.